Thanks. That thing behind me. Sorry, man, it's my fault. Okay, hi Renee, hi Claire, Gladwin, how's it? Sorry we're a bit late tonight, but we run a rehab and things happen when they want to happen because we all want to do what we want to do, and it doesn't work that way. Shirley, Renee, just wait, and Claire, how's it? Hope you had a good weekend. Okay, I'll just wait for a couple more and then we can hit the road. Hi, Karen, Diane, Gertrude, Leslie again. You can't put that watch party on my wall, eh? If I'm going through here. Hi, Lynn.
No.
Clutchy.
There's no other devices to run from.
Hello, Debbie. Richard. Hardcore Richie. Or what I can do, you can run it from this computer. You'll have to go sit there quick because of the... Okay, we just got a few technical problems like Telkom, but ours will be
Oh, swap that one and this one.
up and running any minute now. Okay, nothing like Nescafe. Ura, it was meant to be your turn to talk tonight. I don't know why you're not talking, but you've obviously lost the passion. Okay, so we've got the guys on the farm who are listening to this. And, you know, we got a lot of stories to tell in recovery. Hi, Kim. A lot of stories. Hi, Vanessa. A lot of stories to tell, but there's also a lot of stories that are not told. And one of the most unfortunate stories that are not told is the success rate of any rehabilitation center in the world is very low. There's various reasons for that. And one of the most obvious reasons is when we get to a certain point in our recovery, say 6 months, that's our program. We think we've graduated from high school and from varsity at the same time. In actual fact, we just come out of the creche. Then we go to preschool when we go outside. Then we go to primary school, then we go to high school, and then we go to university. And that only takes about 15 to 20 years. So I'm close to going to university. And that's the university of life, of how to handle and be sober. Not many people can do it. Huh? And it doesn't make me a better man or and other people a better woman than anyone else. It's the desire to have it. If you come into a rehabilitation center and you haven't got the desire, when you go out there, you're going to have a desire for alcohol and for drugs. I'm not saying that. That's what my experience tells me over the last 15 years of sobriety and many other years of being in active addiction. Are you on it?
Yeah, I'm starting to watch party, but I'm trying to get the volume down.
Okay. Tonight we're smoking What are you smoking, Kurt? Marlboro Blue.
That's the one.
Marlboro Blue, double switch and double take. I don't know what it is, but it sure tastes like dope. Haven't had that for many years. Hi, Sherry, Tertia, Debbie, and Elisma. Hi, Elisma. Teresa, our good friend. Teresa's been following Rael for years. For years and years has Teresa been a follower of Rael and a friend of Rael. So, if we take our recovery seriously, then we'll put in more when it comes to the end than halfway. Because it's how we leave decides how we're going to make it out there. Hi, Jared. If we think that, hey, it's just, hi, Jenny, Diane, that it's just going to be a cakewalk, that you've come into a rehab, you've spent 6 months, and you're going to go out and everything's changed. No, it hasn't. Actually, what has changed is the world out there that you know nothing about. That has changed. Because you've been safely protected. Hi, Garth. Hi, Lija. In a recovery center where there is no drugs, especially in our recovery center. I know some recovery centers, there are drugs. I'm sorry about that, Ura. There was a miscommunication. Don't hold it against me, my bro. Just stay passive. You can do tomorrow night if you want to. I'll first tell you about my day. I haven't been out like this in ages. And now with Kurt being promoted to the acting CEO, and some people say his head's swollen. I don't see it swollen, I just see it's well deserved. I was afforded some time, hi Beverly, Renelle, I was afforded some time, Dion, to go out today. Hi Trevor, bless you my brother. And took a drive around, Graham drove us around, and we went to Hart Bay. Hey, wouldn't think it's lockdown because like there's streams of people in Hart Bay. Lovely, beautiful, everyone on the beach. Hi, Helen. And then we tried to get like about a fish and chips there at Snookies. They were fuller than Newlands Rugby Ground used to be. And then we went to Fish on the Rocks, which was fuller than prison. Yeah, I've been there. And then we decided to take a drive through to where I grew up, where I spent 26 years of my life. And one memory stood out for me at that house that I went to, where I lived with my mom and dad for 26 years. That was 30 years ago. Was we planted a pine tree as kids. There were 5 of us kids. Thanks, Linda. And we planted a pine tree, and today it's the biggest tree. We always knew it would get to that because it was big when we left there. And it's massive. It's the biggest tree in Sun Valley. And that tree gave me so much hope. And you can ask me, why does it give me hope? Because even though we left, it continued to climb. And that's what people in recovery must learn. Hi, Eileen. That even if you leave, you must continue to climb. Climb as far as you can, as high as you can. And if you reach for the stars and you miss the stars, you're going to get the moon. Or if you reach for the moon, you're going to get the stars. And driving at that house and having a couple of photographs outside the house is obviously not the same. Things have changed. Hi, Suzette. Oh, and Craig. Hi, Craig. And things have changed. But it's still the home where my memories are fostered. It's still my home where my memories with my mother and father are. And it's still my home where at the back of our house there's a park. And that's where we used to have the test matches as youngsters, where the whole of Sun Valley used to come together and we'd play in the holidays and on the weekends from the morning, from first light, until our mothers and fathers used to call us in when it was getting dark. So it was, hi Laura, and it was beautiful memories, absolutely beautiful memories today. And what made it more special that I could go back there sober. Because after 26 years leaving there, I'd already started my slippery slope down the Old Kent Road. I was really a drunk. Even though I had good jobs, I could still function at that stage. But I was a drunk. I was an alcoholic. I had crossed the invisible line. But the only person that didn't know I had crossed the invisible line was me. And then we took a drive down, and a lot of people must know where the place is. We took a drive towards town to get something to eat, to find a place that isn't full. Sorry, I'm having a sip here. That's for Richie. And we ended up at a place that we used to go to. Hi, Wendy and Millie. We ended up a place we used to go to many, many years ago called Dixie's in Glenken, just past Glenken Hotel. We had a lovely meal there. It was beautiful. It was really pleasant, sitting at the beach, just not talking about addiction and how people upset you to the point that it's not upsetting you really. There's another word for it. It's how people are throwing their lives away. And then just after that, we turned around and I went to go visit my good friend Butch, who's Grant and Graham's father. And Graham has been with me 5 years, and Grant has been with me, I think, coming up a year now. And there we sat and we spoke about life and joked a bit. And hi, Sharon. Hi, Michelle. Jenny. And driving through Fishhook Main Road back to Claremont to go, and Michelle, and going through that main road brought back so many memories, like AP Jones, where we used to go buy our clothes. My mother used to go, on those days you could take APRA, remember? You could take like 5 pairs of pants and four shirts, and you bring it back the next day. Those that don't fit. Can't do it APRA today, you know what I mean? There'll be nothing in the shops. And a lot of beautiful memories. And I was so blessed that it was Sunday. I was so blessed to be sober. And I was so blessed to do what I do. Because doing what I do keeps me sober. If the people don't want to listen to the advice that is sober for 15 years, go try something else, I don't mind. And start hopping from rehab to rehab to rehab to rehab until you've bankrupted. Hi, Gil. Hi, Rachel. Until you have bankrupted your parents. This game has only got one ending. And that ending is to stay sober until the day that you slip into a coffin. This isn't an intermittent thing where we want to stay sober, make amends, treat people properly, just to get the key back to the door, get the wives to love us again, get the mothers to love us. They always love us. Mothers always love us. My mother always loved me and still does, but she didn't like me when I was a full-blown alcoholic. Smoked a bit of drugs. Yeah, I did a bit of drugs. When I smoked dope, I used to make poetry. Can't do it sober, because I'm not into it. But yes, I should talk a lot of shit when I was geroken. But anyway, I just need the step guide, and then I'll be able to, thanks God, I think I always look slick, because these days I want to take care of myself. When I was drunk and drugged, I couldn't care what my hair looked like, what my teeth looked like, what my eyes looked like, what my clothes looked like, what my shoes looked like, what I looked like. But then when you get sober, you have to change everything. Hi, Gil, my friend. Tracy. Tracy, best is the best. So you change, and you get to a point where you decide, you know, what other challenges are. And people have asked me, why did you promote Kurt Schuller? I pay him too much. Let's get that straight out here now. I pay the man too much, but he actually deserves every cent I pay him. And I can guarantee you now, there isn't a rehab in this country that pays what their then general manager is what I pay my general manager. There isn't one. And I know what people get paid. And I get paid more. Why would I leave it to a drug addict And you all know Kurt's story. He's such a wonderful person with some beautiful stories. When I want to laugh, I ask Kurt, tell me a bit about your life. Now, I've heard the stories 48 times, but I still laugh about them. It's because I've got a passion for something else that I've had my whole life. And that is to try and unite people no matter color. When a black person gets killed, this is how now the sober addict thinks. When a black person gets murdered, I don't go run around the field or walk around the field and think it's a celebration. When a white person gets murdered, the same. When the colored person gets murdered, the same. When the Indian person gets murdered, the same. I don't like Ramaphosa, and that's well known. It's in the media. I don't like Becky Chelly, a.k.a. Chuck Norris. I don't like him at all. But because they black, I can't dislike all blacks and hate all coloreds and the thieves that are in government and parliament, the thieves that don't open up more rehabs for our people. Hi, Alexandria. Look at all where that money could go to. I've always fought for the underdog my whole life. That's why I'm one of the few South Africans, and I'm going to throw a bit of a brag here now, or arrogancy, or you can call it what you like. I fought many years ago. I defended myself against Michael Donan, who did the Donan Commission of Inquiry into the arms deal. I defended myself, and I beat him in a civil case. And I set a precedent in law that if you take those big brown law books of 2002, you will find my name in it. Because I love a challenge, and I love taking on and standing up for the underdog. I have my whole life. I wasn't drunk my whole life. I was a binge drinker. But I could create more chaos in 4 days than some people can create in 40 years. Because I used to go on a suicide mission. Maybe I thought I was one of those kamikaze pilots from Japan. And Japan's a beautiful place, most cleanest place I've ever seen in my life. Besides my mother's house. Beautiful and clean. So I've had that passion, and I had a black man with me, and I think Vanessa will remember him. Gertrude will definitely remember him. Hi, Trevor. Renee says, hi, Anthony. How's it, Trevor? Hi, Renee. And he stayed with me for about 16 years. I bought him a home because he started the business with me. When he came to me, he couldn't even speak English. Hi, Cheryl, my friend. Wonderful woman, Cheryl, does a lot of work in the community. We don't give people enough credit. You know when we give people credit? When they're lying in a box and you give them the eulogy. We should give credit while people are still alive. Don't give him medals after the fact. Or thank you, just a thank you. So I will say thank you, Cheryl, for what you do for the community. And I've never met Cheryl, but we will meet at a round of golf. So when this black man was with me, and I used to sleep in Guguletu, I used to sleep in Kailicha, I slept in Gympie Street, in Manenberg, in Bontierville, Jackals Vleyline, I had a casino there. I was a scum, man. But Marius and I used to be together. And I promised him, hey, Marius, if you make it in this painting business, I'll look after you for the rest of your life. He was a black man. But I couldn't judge him on what Idi Amin did. I got so much hate mail today from people who said they belong to the Boer folk, that they love Hitler and hate Jews, because I laid charges against a man who called A, fellow South Africans the K word, and B, when he said that the farmers deserve to die in such a gruesome way, and he showed us all a video. I will refuse to hate on the grounds of color. I will refuse not to give a person a chance on the grounds of color. And the only thing that's going to unite our country and help our people and help our children is to find solutions to the problems. Our children are at school with all colors. They're not growing up hating them. Do you think when they pass matric, suddenly they're going to hate their best friend because their best friend happened to be white or black? So maybe we must start looking at the solutions and not the problems. Maybe we must start sitting down and because I don't like Ramaphosa means I must hate all blacks. Never. Because that colored man did that to that person, I must hate all colors. Never. Because that white man did that, I must hate all whites. Never. Because that Indian person did that, I must hate all Indians. Never. You cannot judge a man on the color of his skin. You judge him on his actions and his character. And that's how we will find dialogue amongst us. In a nation, yes, we're struggling in this nation at the moment. We've got a country that is corrupt. But because Cyril Ramaphosa and his cohorts and some of his ministers are getting tenders, that doesn't mean that the man living in Khayelitsha is corrupt as well. So why should they be violated? Why should they be run down? Especially when it comes to addiction, life. So this black man who lived with me for 16 years, I loved him, my best friend I ever had. He never betrayed. I never betrayed him. He never betrayed me. And I promised him, Morris, when the time comes, I will look after your family and I will buy you a house. It took 10 years, 11 years. And Kurt knows Morris very well. So does Vanessa. So does Gertrude, my bottle store manager. We're speaking of my bottle stores managers online. Gertrude used to serve me. Sometimes I had no money, and Gertrude would say, here's a six-pack, here's this, just bring back the money. And I kept good credit because I took the money back, man. Eventually I bought Marius a house, and then when I went to the house one day, I thought he had some furniture. I'll never forget what I saw. I saw his 70-odd-year-old mother sitting on a paint tin inside the house. And I said, Marius, where's the furniture? He said, we don't have money. He kitted his whole house out with furniture. Because I couldn't see that lady. Even though people will say she's black, she's a human being first. We cannot go to any church in this country and have hate in our hearts. Hi, Elizabeth. We cannot hate our fellow man. We may disagree, hi, Elizabeth. We may disagree with our fellow man. But if people come into this rehab, or when we go out and give talks, and it's mainly previously disadvantaged schools, they must get the same message of respect. The cashier who serves us at Spa, must I hate her because the ANC-led government are corrupt? Refuse to do it. And that's the way I've tackled my sobriety. I will stand up for what is right. If I make mistakes, I'll apologize. And then I will get back on my horse, unlike some who fell off a horse. And I will continue with my life. That was Eugene de Blanche who fell off the horse, remember? Reiter and Swat. So these people have attacked me today on social media. Your Engelsman die and your Engelsman daar. Hey, I'm proud to be English, man. Like everyone should be proud to be their language. Because if we had more respect for each other's language and cultures, the world would be a better place. And then two of them wrote to me and said that they hate Jewish people. Hi, Janita. And I love the Jews. I've been to Israel 3 times. I know what it looks like in Israel. And I love the Israelis. I'm not talking about the Palestinian war. That's their problem. I'm talking about the biblical side of Israel. You know, a lot of people think that because we're in addiction, we're stupid, or we're in recovery, but we're not. We need to have stimulating chats with each other to go out there and face the world that will stop us from picking up the next drug or the next drink. My hero was a drunk. Maybe that's why I drank. Only joking. But he was a drunk. But he was a wonderful drunk, and he's my hero. And his name is Winston Churchill. I love him to bits. Also with his cigar and his bowler hat. At least he used his cigar properly, unlike Bill Clinton. Now you may ask me, where does this all fit into recovery? It fits in about respect, morals, values for each other, starting from God, to our mothers and fathers, to our wives or partners, to our children, to our fellow workers, to the garden executive who comes to mow the lawn, or our domestic executive who comes and cleans the house. Respect. If I respect my body now, and I have morals that I want to act out, and values, I will not continue to drink or drug to go back to the scum that I used to be. I may not be the person I want to be, but thank God I'm not the person I used to be. Recovery is a journey we undertake not to get away from the drug or the alcohol completely. Because wherever we go, we're going to be confronted by alcohol, and wherever we go, we're going to be confronted by drugs. There are drug dealers. I deal with a lot of schools. There's drug dealers in every school, including Worcester, a small town. When you go down Voortrekker Road, you'll find drugs. When you go into Boeresig, you'll find drugs. When you go into Bishop's Court, you'll find drugs. Drugs doesn't discriminate, and drugs does not have a name of a place or destination on it. The only destination on it is death. There's been 400 and odd overdoses in Washington, D.C. for the month of July. We've got no statistics what is happening in our country. I believe our local government, are, especially here in the Boerland, are doing a brilliant job. The mayor is doing a fine job with her staff. And I say that without fear or favour. I believe that our Minister of Social Development, local, in the province, Shana Fernandez, is doing a brilliant job. I think the Education Minister is trying her best, Debbie Schaefer. I do not think that Dan Plater should still be mayor. But let him finish his term. He's been in council for years. But that's just my opinion. Unless I can put some facts on the table and discuss why I think of this and think of that, what does it count? Because in addiction recovery, what counts is we can slam other people. Hi, Mickey. We can slam other people, but why don't we look closer to home and look at our behavior to our parents, our behavior to our loved ones, the way we treated our children. And then maybe sometimes we can ask, why did our child turn out that way? I'm not saying every child that gets addicted to drugs upbringing, because that is a lie. But there are a percentage of people who did have a bad upbringing. Because it's easier for me, hi Ezra, my friend, God bless you. It's easier for parents to give children 200 Rand, or whatever they want to give, and say, go to the mall, we're busy tonight. We don't know who our children are going to. We don't know who our children are mixing with. We don't drug test our children when they come home. We don't check on their phones. Isn't that basic morals and values? Hi, Teresa. Isn't that basic morals? Isn't that basic love? That we will care where our children are? We can't start educating children at the age of 15, 16, 17, 18. We're already past that point. When it's not COVID, I travel around this country and I give talks at schools and churches and corporates, and whoever wants to speak to me, I'll go and speak to them. And I tell them the exact same thing. God put the children in our way for us to be guardians of our children. We can't flog them off like meat and say, hey, go and enjoy yourself and make sure you're back by 12. And if you come back by 1 o'clock, so what? Who cares? Or you get a call at 12 o'clock, Mom, I'm going to stay over at Jackie's house. You don't even know Jackie is. We have to take every measure that we can to ensure that our kids don't become addicted to drugs. In my day, it was not that easy to find drugs. You could find drugs, but you can also order. When I went to the drug squad, it was the same. I was telling someone the other day, in the drug squad in the 80s, in the narcotic bureau, that's all we did, narcotic bureau. We did drugs, escort agencies, massage parlors, because they were illegal in those days, couldn't believe it. And no one used to go visit them, you know what I mean? Only the married men. And when we used to find a gram of coke, not Coca-Cola, for those who are not drug addicts, cocaine, stuff it up your nose, you know what I mean? When we used to find a gram of coke, we used to get drunk for a week, a celebration. That's how scarce it was. And we were good narcotic detectives. If you found LSD, hi Nikki, my friend, if you found LSD, you thought that you just won the lotto 8 times. Compare that to today. Have we moved with the times? Have we opened up enough free rehabilitation centers for our children? Are there enough rehabilitations for females? Are there enough rehabilitation centers for females that are down and out and have a child or two with them? I'm not talking about going to live in the ark. I'm talking about rehabilitation. So if we go to schools, and when we go to schools, Kurt, do we still have Stivers Marlboro Blue Exchange Beyond? Double tap, have you ever heard of that? Those who smoke. Nikki, have you ever had one of those? It's like smoking dope. When we go to schools, we don't put on pictures on the wall or on the TV and say, this is what heroin looks like, this is what tuck looks like, this is what cat looks like, this is what mandrax looks like, this is what dacha looks like. Because the kids know it already from the age of 6 because they got little telephones in their hand. And they watch TV, for those who don't have telephones. And they see what it looks like. But they don't see the damage of it. They don't see the damage it causes. So they see some celebrity on the TV smoking a joint and they say, oh, wow, I want to be like Tom Hanks in that movie. Oh, see him smoking a joint and then talk shit. What does the boy do? As soon as he gets to a place and someone says to him, hey, China, you want to float? Here's a joint. What's a joint? Nah, it'll just make you float. Man. Just take it. Just pull it like you pull a cigarette. Hi, Brenda Abrams. And that youngster takes that joint. And he feels a feeling that he will never feel again in his life. One of absolute euphoria. There are the odd couple who take a drag of a joint or a button pipe or whatever, that put it down and get sick and say, I'll never do that again. Don't get me wrong, there are those. But the majority of our children will use. And then the same bra will come along on the Friday and Saturday and say, listen, my boy, my brother, you and I were so charuk the other day. that we were seeing strobe lights coming out the roof. Try this. What's it called? No, it's called TikTok. Just what's TikTok? What is that you're holding in your hand? It's called a lolly. So why do they call it lollies? Aren't I meant to be sucking lollies now? I'm only 12 years old. The youngest addict I've ever had to deal with was 7 years old. Full-grown tuck addict. What do you tell him? He's tuck. He goes through and he carries on using. I'm just talking about the typical scenario now. And other friends start using tuck. And then things start going missing in the mother's house and the father's house. Because tuck costs money. And he steals and he steals and he steals. And then he isolates himself in the bedroom. And then his whole demeanor changes. He becomes dirty. He doesn't want a bath. His teeth become bad. He's awake for 7 or 8 days at a time. And then he's fast asleep for 4 days. And the parents think, and it's not wrong of the parents to think this. The parents think this is just his teenage years. And when I encourage parents, when we think it's the teenage years, take a drug test for 55 rand and save you hundreds of thousands of rands of pain. Spare my feelings, save my life. And then he gets a job, and he needs money, and he loses his job. Stealing. From who? Not you. Because he knows when he steals from mom and dad, you're not going to lay charges. But when he goes to Uncle Ronnie on the corner, and he takes from Uncle Ronnie could be a bad man, angry man. He's not going to say, hey, you got a drug problem. You're a thief. And then that's you start mounting up your criminal record. Do you ever like that kid? Starts mounting up your criminal record. Hi, Merle. And then by that time, after the criminal record, where you've been kept out of jail all the time, you get the phone call at 3 o'clock in the morning, Mom, I'm going to prison. And then Mom turns around and says, this I'm talking from total experience, this isn't from a book, it's from experience. Then Mom turns around and says, what did I do wrong? Mom, you did nothing wrong. There's two scenarios here. There could have been the absent mom and dad. Where were you? Or there could be the mom who did everything in her power to make sure her son and daughter grew up properly, and they fell off the rails, like me. There's no one-case scenario for drug addiction. There's no one-case scenario to say you did this or I did that, or why didn't I do that. I have mothers at my table crying when Kurt and I interview them. Where did I go wrong? You didn't go wrong, ma'am. The system, the evilness, beat your son. And then center, and they think if they got money or a good medical aid, they think for 3 weeks, hi Laura, they think for 3 weeks you can go into a rehabilitation center and you can be cured for 80,000 rand. The Dutch have bought most of the rehabilitation centers in South Africa. The Dutch bring Dutch people from Holland to South Africa. They own because it's cheaper. And then after the rehab, they go on safaris, then it's secondary care, third to care, whatever care you wanted. And they basically come here and have a holiday while our children are on the streets. If you've noticed lately, And I noticed it again today, driving through Cape Town and Sea Point and Camps Bay and Hout Bay and Fishhook and Simonstown, the whole place. And then I went down the main road. Wynberg looks like Uganda. And Graham pointed out the drug dealers to me because he knows them. Well, it's not very difficult not to spot them. So when you leave a recovery center, it's all around you. And eventually, after son has now got a few criminal records for possession of whatever drug he used, he finds himself stealing. And he gets sent to prison. Like I was. After being a detective for many, many years. And once you go to prison, your life changes forever. So again, I say we mustn't only look at the problem. Where is the solution? The solution is that the adults, the mother and the fathers, the wives and the husbands and all that kind of nonsense, must take control and put down boundaries. We're going to do it this way, or there is the highway. My mother put me in prison. My mother threw me out of her house. My mother was my biggest enabler. Whatever I did wrong, Mom used to cover for me. Until one day she said, "Stuff that, you go, boy." And for almost 2 years, 19 months, 20 months, I can't remember exactly, I was geroek most of the time, on the herb. I toured this country homeless. No teeth in my mouth, unshaven, for a long, long time. Hi, Carol, my friend from Fishhook. I was in Fishhook today, Carol. And I used to sleep in shop entrances, on the doorsteps of churches. I slept on the park bench for about 8 months in Yelbra. And I blamed everyone. I blamed my mom, I blamed my dad, I blamed my auntie, I blamed my dog, I blamed everyone. But no one ever in my entire life has put me down and poured alcohol down my throat. I willingly took the alcohol because I loved the buzz it gave me. I willingly took the drug because I like the buzz it gave me. Just in between, if you want to buy a house, Carol is one of the best estate agents there is, with Jenny Williams and Peter Andrenatis, who works on the Blouberg area. Carol is brilliant. The Fishhook area around there, she sells more houses than I have coffee. And I drink quite a lot of coffee. And we were at school together. And that was about 100 years ago, Carol. But that's cool. At least we're still alive and we're still kicking and we're still trying to serve what we can do. Lovely to see you online. Hello, Henning. How are you? And then eventually you go to prison, you go homeless. And there's a lot of men who come into our centre who've been homeless. But they've been homeless for a week and they say they've been homeless. That's not homeless. That's taking a vacation from home. Hello, Tanya, who used to model for, I can't remember the name anymore. Tanya was a top model. And she did modeling schools and all this kind of nonsense. But she was a top model. No, I did not know Tanya when she was a model. People are sick. I think more people need help than they can admit to. Then you go to prison and you find out about the norma. Then you go homeless. And it's a very lonely life to be on the streets. But I'll tell you what it did to me on the streets. It made me, when I came back, if someone gives me a chocolate or 50 Rand or 100 Rand, it's the exact same thing. I've always been a bit of a maverick. I live for today. I enjoy today. I'll take care of tomorrow. But I'll first make sure, while I'm sober, that my responsibilities are done before I go and have my fun. And this being a job that is virtually 24 hours a day for myself or Kurt and the management that are with me, it's not always easy. Because you don't get tired from any physical stuff. You get tired from the mental exhaustion Because how many times do you say the same thing? Sometimes I think over the last 11 years I should have called this the Bambino Crash. But I decided to stick with rail. It was easier. And once you're on the streets, and I was on the streets, and then I went from Chivas Regal right down to wine. Not expensive wine, cheap wine. Because then we used to blow the pup suck out and then use that as a pillow at night. It actually makes a very good pillow. But you're so gesaped, you don't even really realize that you're on a pillow. And then you go put your hands into a rubbish bin and you look for food. That's why one of my greatest hates, and it's not a hate, but I don't know what the other word is to be greedy. Have a plate of food and eat it, and be thankful that you got a plate of food. There's 2 billion people in this world that don't have food. And it made me grateful for that. Made me grateful to have a bath, to cut your nails, to wash your hair, to put on clothes that are clean. Not had to be name brands like I used to wear. Okay, I've got some name brand clothing, but that's irrelevant for me now. What is relevant is that I can be and try and be an upstanding member of society who's done a lot of wrong. Alcohol took me to places I didn't want to be. Alcohol became my master. Alcohol was captain of the ship. Alcohol was the pilot in charge. And all I could do was wake up in the morning with the shakes and the shivers and have a drink and have another drink until I could put my hands at the side and they weren't shaking. I don't want to go back to institutions where they strip you naked. I've never been to a rehab in my life. I cold turkeyed my recovery. Where they put you into padded cells and they jab your ass every 4 hours to keep you asleep for 3 or 4 days and then let you out. I don't want that life anymore. And that's what I try and tell the men that come into this recovery center. Some listen, some don't. It won't happen to me. Well, anyone who knows me on this wall tonight will know it may not happen to me, or it hasn't happened to me yet. The most powerful word in addiction recovery is yet. We may think it's relapse prevention or cognitive therapy or any of this crap. It's called yet. It hasn't happened to me yet. And sometimes then it is too late to turn back. Like it was too late for my nephew to turn back. He was a drug addict, he had businesses, he was doing well. He was 28. Went to rehab and he thought after 3 weeks he was fine. Went to remote and he thought, okay, now I'm saved, I'm done. 2 weeks later he put a rope around his neck and he killed himself. And that is today why I'm talking to you. That's the calling God put on my life. That his legacy will never die. So when I see people come into a rehabilitation center and playing games, I hope they never use again. But my head tells me they will use again. For friends out there and parents out there who've got loved ones in our recovery center at the moment, if you use drugs and you think you can go and use alcohol, you're going back to the drugs. It's a proven fact. It's not my facts. It's a proven fact. There cannot be an exception to the rule, because an exception to any rule will come back and bite you. There has to be boundaries put in, not to safeguard only the addict or the alcoholic, but to safeguard yourself. parents also have one life. They deserve to be free. They don't need this pain. But if you do not catch it early, the pain of living with a drug addict or an alcoholic husband or an alcoholic sister or an alcoholic father or an alcoholic anything, the pain will kill you. A study was done that more moms from addicted children and husbands that are addicts or alcoholics, this is from the World Health Organization, believe it or not, are on antidepressants than anyone else. Because we as alcoholics and addicts, we don't take friends, we take prisoners. We don't look at loved ones as loved ones, they're hostages. And we think we can manipulate them like I did. And I thought that the whole world revolved around me because I was an addict. But I found out the hard way that it doesn't revolve around me. I'm just a small pawn in a big chess game. And if I don't make the right move, I'm going to be checkmate. Either in prison, either in a box, or either on the streets. I'm not even going to include rehabilitation centre, because only 2% of South Africa can afford rehabilitation centre. 2%. Can you believe it? I'm not talking about 80,000 in a month. 2% of people can afford rehabilitation centre. What makes us so special to be one of those 2%? So once we've got the chance, we don't take it. Want to go against management, or you want to do skeleton things on the side. Remember, when you're doing those skeleton things, you're not doing anything to us. You're doing it to yourself. Because if you can't be rigorously honest, that's your problem. It's not mine. If you want to think, okay, I'm getting away with this, or I'm getting away with that, and I'm winning a war, you lost the battle a long time ago. Because the house will always win. And that's how it should be in the parents' home. That the house must always win. I just want to read you something here quickly. Hello, sir. From the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. We families of addicts or alcoholics keep few skeletons, hi Pastor Katrina, keep few skeletons in the closet. Everyone knows about the other's alcoholic troubles. This is a condition which in ordinary life which would produce untold grief. There must be scandalous gossip, laughter at the expense of other people, and a tendency to take advantage of intimate information. Now, a lot of people, when we've been drinking and drugging, we did a lot of things that are still in the cupboard. So if we don't do what we call in 12-step recovery, if we don't do a step 4 properly, it's going to come back and bite us. If you're not rigorously honest, it will come back and bite us. And if you go through to step 8, which is to make amends to people. Now, when we make amends to people, it's not, hey, sorry, Mom, for what I caused. The amends has to go further than words. It has to go into actions. Because anyone can say sorry. How many times did we say sorry to our moms and dads when we were in trouble? Only to start the nonsense the next week. How long are we going to torment our parents? How long, when our parents come to visit, are they going to look in the bags of what you brought them, instead of looking into the eyes of your parents and hugging them? How long are we going to be so self-centered, dripping with self-pity, that if our parents can't come visit on a weekend, your whole weekend goes into a free fall or a free fall? Maybe our parents are busy. How many times did we say to our parents, I'll see you for Sunday lunch? And 3 years later, you still haven't arrived. We forget what we did. We play the card of the victim. Us addicts love to be the victim. Poor me, poor me, poor me, pour me another drink. It's time that we stood up. Yeah, thanks, Graham. It's time that we stood up. And the men, I'm talking about men now, got a backbone, took a full inventory of themselves, and become leaders of the pack. And that's not a sexist thing I'm saying, that is what I believe in. Man is the head of the home. It's biblical. But a man can't be the head of the home for his children when he's lying drunk or drugged. Thank God my daughter has... Hello, Peter. There, Peter on the Bloberg side, the best. Him and Jenny, the best estate agent. Want to buy a house? Contact Peter. Top shop. Known him for years. Serves a lot in the community. Does a lot for people. Wonderful brother. Also got a story that I'd love Peter to share here one night on this platform of how he has lost loved ones through this pandemic of addiction. Hi, Bridget. So at the end of the day, the decisions have to be taken that all parties are agreeing upon. And sometimes the addict has no say. Spare my feelings, save my life. The alcoholic addict like me had to prove himself, not to the world. I had to prove to myself that, Anthony, you could stay sober. I had to prove that, Anthony, you can become a better man. Anthony, you don't need the drink and the drugs and the whores and everything else that goes with it. I had to take responsibility. And very few people like to take responsibility, because the first little bit of chaos, or the first little bit of, I see it in my rehab center for the last 10 years. If you put a man straight in line and he doesn't like it, the first thing he wants to run. Where are they running to? Back to the drugs? Or back to go make hell at home where they come from? It's our duty. It's our duty, or my duty as a Christian, not a fanatical Christian, a Christian, to show people discipline. We don't use violence on our phone. Hi, Crystal. To show people discipline. And it all starts in the morning by making your bed. Once you've made your bed, you can then look at the bed, go brush your teeth, go wash your face, because the guys shower here in the evening. I'm talking about 10 years experience here. I'm not talking about the people who are sitting in front of me at the moment. But if the shoe fits, wear it. Because I don't take shit from any addict. If you want what I got, do what I did. If you're not, go back, go drug, go cause harm, go to prison. Good luck. I'm not here to be your surrogate mother or your surrogate father. I'm here to teach you how to stay sober from my experience, strength, and hope. And I think I do that pretty well. I dedicated my life to it. I've sacrificed a lot to do what I do. And I don't do it for the money either, because I sponsor more people than pay me. I'm trying to find common ground between humanity, the will to live, or the desire to die. I've got 3 choices. Every addict that I know has gone through pain. I went through pain when I was on the streets. But before that, I had a lovely life. Drug squad detective, murder and robbery unit detective, security manager of a top retail store in South Africa, worked for a big bank. I had better cars than James Bond. But I wasn't 007, which I thought I was. When I used to go out and sit at the Fireflies, because I love law, when I used to sit at the Fireflies opposite the Supreme Court with Marius, with long cigars, and again I used it not like Bill Clinton, I used to think I was Al Capone. Alcohol changed me into a different person. Alcohol not only wrecked and ruined me, alcohol broke me in half. Alcohol was doing what paint stripper does on wood. It was busy stripping away Anthony Hall. And the last person to see the last strip was Anthony Hall. I remember one night drinking wine while I was homeless. It was about 1.5 years into my stint on the streets in the whole of South Africa. There isn't a town I haven't been into South Africa. There isn't a town I haven't been in. And I'm not saying that proudly, but I'm saying, well, I went on a journey. I took a 2-year sabbatical. My mother didn't want this piece of filth in her house. The mother that loves me and still loves me today. And we were sitting at Hillbrow at the recreational centre outside there, and a guy came and he had some bread and some methylated spirits. And we all the homeless people knew each other, so we were all brasa, you know. And he said, would you like some? So I didn't have any wine. I said, go for it. And while he was busy getting the operation done, another homeless guy came. And he said, Anthony, what are you doing? I said, no, I got no wine, I got no money, who cares? Because you give up in life. You throw in the towel. Because you've blamed the whole world. Remember, the whole world was against me. Everything that was done to me was the world's fault. It wasn't Anthony Hall's fault. Even my poor dog came into the firing line. Hi, Lily and Sharon. How are you, my friends? Great to see you. And the man poured the methylated spirits with the white bread. And then this other homeless man came and he said, Anthony, don't. I'll give you some of my wine. And that's why I didn't take methylated spirits. I was 5 minutes away of being a methylated spirits drunk. And when I got sober in 2005, to me, was the most wonderful act that God has ever done in my life. And like I said to you before, I'm not holier than thou at all. I'm a naughty boy. I like making jokes. I like having fun. I like going out. Alcohol doesn't bother me. I'll sit with people and I can drink all day. Enjoy it. It doesn't bother me. And that morning when I woke up and Marius was in the garage, Marius Lalwa, the black man, and I'd normally go out there, we had the painting business, and he'd smoke a joint, or we would smoke a joint and then have a castle. Always drank castle, like castle, love castle. And that day, I walked past my mom, went to the garage, had a few drags of the doobie, they call it, of the dope, took a sip, and that day it wasn't castle, strangely enough. Gertrude gave Marius Spinal spin. It's Gertrude's fault, not mine. She's online, yeah? She'll tell you if I'm lying. She'll tell you what a drunk this man was. Don't tell a story you can't back up. People come into rehab and they give you these long, glamorous stories. Rather shut up and think of the future, man. I'm not interested in how much you drank or drugged. It's irrelevant. It's what happened to you when you drank or drugged. And I took the sip of Smirnoff Spin, and there was about that much left in the bottle. I put it down, and I went to go and pick it up again, and I couldn't pick it up. And I had no intention that morning when I left my mom's house to go into the garage of her home to stop drinking and drugging. No intention, not at all, not at all. That was the furthest thing from my thought, from my thought pattern. I was going to enjoy my joint, enjoy my drink, and then go to work. And for some reason that day, it was a slight drizzle, so we couldn't paint outside. So I went quite late to the garage. And I turned around to Marius and I said, Marius, I'm done. He used to call me Anton. He couldn't speak English when he met me, but he slowly learned. And he said, Anton, I believe you. This black man, believe me. Lived with me for 16 years. I loved him with every fibre in my body. And I walked inside to my mom. And I said to my mom, Mom, I'm done with alcohol. After 25 years of torturing her and my father and my brothers and sister. And everyone else that came within looking distance of me. And my mother said, again? Again? She didn't believe me one bit. You know why? Because I'd lied to her so many times that I was going to stop drinking. I'd lied to her so many times. I used to phone her and she used to say, Anthony, you drinking? No, Mom, I'm not drinking. Meantime, I can't even pronounce my words. And for the next 2 years, I went to an AA meeting every single day and night. Some in the afternoon, then we had afternoon meetings. Some in the evenings. I never missed a meeting in 2 years except one, when my mother had an eye operation. I sobered up just before my dad died. My dad, who had Alzheimer's, big man, sober enough for long enough to be asked by my family to give the eulogy at my dad's funeral. And the first thing I said to the people, this is the last man who should be standing here after what I did to my mother and my father. I don't have the right to stand here and speak about my father the way I treated him for 25 years. I then proceeded to give a half-an-hour eulogy on the dad that spent everything on his son. The dad that gave me everything I wanted. The dad that provided for all our 5 kids. But I first had to make that admission in front of a packed church, packed to the rafters, that I wasn't the right person to say farewell, because I had hurt him too much. But thank God I had made my amends with my dad before he got very ill with Alzheimer's. Thank God I did what they call in Alcoholics Anonymous, step 8 and step 9. I did my step 8, which calls making amends. I made amends with my father, that when I buried my father, I could hold my head up high and stand at that pulpit and face the people that thought Anthony was a drunken scum who went off the rails from having it all. And I could stand there proudly and say, he was my father. And one of my father's greatest wishes, which I think was his greatest wish, because it was my mother's greatest wish. All they wanted was their son sober. They didn't want their son back as a director of a big company. They didn't want me back as a detective. They wanted their son sober. And I made a vow to God that my daughter, my beautiful daughter Amy, will never see me drunk. She was born on the 28th of April, the day before my mother's birthday. And I sobered up on the 28th of June. That was 2 months. She was 2 months old when I sobered up. And thank you, but by the grace of God and the fellowship of addicts and alcoholics who want to stay sober, my daughter has never seen her father drunk. My daughter, who I don't see a lot, my daughter is proud of her dad. My daughter tells everyone who her dad is, where he comes from, what he did. Because one day I sat my daughter down and I said to her, Amy, let me tell you something before you read it in newspapers or you don't know what I'm talking about. This is what your father was. This is what I am now. And I pray that I can go on like that for the rest of my life. And that I can be a good father to you. And that you will never see that your father drunk. You'll never see violence from your father. And I'll never forget her reaction. And today she's a Springbok toe trick. She just hugged me. Just hugged me and cried. There's nothing else she said. Because I was open and honest with her. That this is where I come from. But today I'm in this situation where I am now. And I'm staying sober. I'm not being tempted by the devil to pick up the bottle. I'm not letting any affairs handle or come into my way that will force me to go make the problem better by having a bottle or a drug in my hands. If I've got God in one hand, and I've got the fellowship and support of people that I know and people that I haven't even met on Facebook and other social media, I don't have hands to pick up a drink. Because my one hand, God is in it, and my other hand is people God has sent my way. There's a woman by the name of Sylvia Bester who's no longer on Facebook. I've never met this woman. She's older than me. She's also had problems with one of her loved ones. Every single month without fail, she deposits money into my account that I can buy my mom chocolates and some luxuries. That to me is the unconditional love. The unconditional love, how we should treat each other. I've donated hundreds of thousands of rands to different causes. I've sponsored to the value of about 4 million rand, 5 million rand. But you know what? What price to be put on a family being one together? What price to be put on Kurt Schuller, who came in here dying after I first rejected that he come back to me. Not because he's ever talked a nasty word about me. But I just didn't want him back because he had been here before and he'd had his chance. And my ex-wife Karen said, if that man dies who you love, and I love him, even when he left here, if that man dies who you love, the blood is on your hands, Anthony. You decide. That conversation took 15 minutes. Because my heart was struggling with my head. My ego was getting in the way of trying to save a person's life. And his rise has just been miraculous. And he will continue to listen to me. And we've got a relationship today that is based on trust. That is based on trust and based on love for each other. There is no greater love than one addict to another when you're sober. When we're drinking and drugging, they're just benefits. Anything is just a benefit. Whether the drink is the benefit, the drug is the benefit. If he's a friend and he's got money, he's a benefit. Let's use him until we finish with him. When we see his wallet is empty, we're gone. He's done. He's under the bus. He's history. And since that day, besides being voted 2 years ago by the parliamentary team that came out, I don't know if that means much, as the best rehab in this country, we have achieved a lot. I've given talks in Israel. I've been there 3 times. I've given talks in Australia. I've given talks at a restaurant on a beachfront in Bali. I visited Portugal to see how their drug system works. I've given talks in Ohio, America. I'm not saying this to brag. I'm saying this where this man comes from, the park bench. I've given talks in Fifth Avenue, New York, just down the road from the Trump Towers. I've walked a road, and some things, and people have asked me, would you change anything? Hi, Michelle. What could I change? This was made and put out to me. I didn't know that my nephew was going to kill himself. I didn't know that one day I would own a recovery center. I did not know one day that I will go around and talk around the world and around South Africa to people about addiction. So that's why I promoted Kurt Schiller to the acting CEO. And I'll make a decision in a couple of months, which I know the decision is what it is already, to make him permanent. I'm going to branch out into my other love, to fight for the rights for people who haven't got them. White, black, colored, or Indian, I don't care. I don't live in fear. Because if I live in fear, it means I've got no faith. All right. It's been a long road. It's been a long journey. But the greatest thing is that I've seen successes on this farm, like Graham. Came off the streets of Hanover Park 5 years ago, came in here with a toothbrush and 1 or 2 pairs of pants, I think, and a t-shirt that had about 87 holes in it. Today is a qualified panel beater with a panel beating shop on our small holding. Richard Ferreira came in looking like Lady Macduff. He listened. Today he's got a beautiful girlfriend. And he regained his Springbok colours for wrestling. Gladwin could see. Came in here, didn't have the easiest time because he thought he knew everything. But today he's thriving. And I'm so proud of him. I'm so proud who's done so well in his recovery and he's still sober. Don't come and tell me you're sober only for a year and then you had a relapse. Relapse is not part of recovery. I'm so proud of young Jared, who also had a hard time. You had to win his family back. It took a long time. No one but Granny wanted to know this man. He's now staying back with his father. Big J from Boeresig. Big man, full of tattoos. The memory of his wife, it wasn't his wife then, it was his girlfriend Tosca, who used to phone me every day and say, how's Big J doing? That she used to become irritating, but I loved her. Today they're happily married with 3 children. Freddie Cass went to 18 rehabs, went for ibogaine injections. His father and mother came to me and said, please keep him here for 6 months. We can't handle him anymore. Today he's 7 years sober. Stian Moster, the strongest man I've ever met in my life, who came in here with his father, who's even stronger. One of the first people, 9 years sober. married, 2 children. What price do you put on the life? There are so many people. Mark Isaacson, Kali. People that I can talk about. Grant, Angus, AD. Lincoln is back. It's a pleasure, glad when I do it again. And there was one boy I had to bury. And I want to tell you the story. It's going to take 2 minutes. His name was Jock Prinsloo. He came from Springs and he came to this rehab. And he stayed for 6-8 months. And he went out. And he had a relapse and he came back to me. And I loved this boy. He was 24 years old. He had such manners, such respect. All he wanted was recovery. He never once went against the grain. He never once tried to take on the system. He never once thought he was clever, because his cleverness got him here. And then one day I got a phone call, and it was from his girlfriend. And when he left here, I said, my boy, if you go back to a toxic relationship, you're going to use drugs. And that's what happened. He used drugs. And he came back here, and he got the news that she was pregnant. And he said to me, Mr. Hall, he was an Afrikaans guy, came from a very wealthy family. And he said, Mr. Hall, I'm going to explain to you how, just quickly, how alcohol and drugs breaks families, even in death. And he left. And I said to him, Zaki, my boy, and these words are recorded by other people. It's not going to go your way. You're depressed. You're probably going to commit suicide, my boy, because you're on a suicide mission. Stay with me. I love you. I don't care. I don't want money from you, nothing. And he said, Mr. Hall, I must go. And I had to respect that. And he left. And I remember taking him to the bus stop and hugging him and saying goodbye. 10 days later, I got the call he had hung himself. I flew up to his funeral in Springs, and on the left-hand side of the pews were his mother, his girlfriend, the little Baba, and a couple of other people. And on the right-hand side was his father and a couple of other people and me. He got the worst send-off I've ever seen in my life. I was asked to speak at that funeral, and I spoke for about 45 minutes because the pastor, and I believe it because he was a drug addict, couldn't have spoken for more than 5 minutes. There was not even one hymn sung in that big church for a beautiful boy who wasn't guided properly. So we got the choice. Let's look after each other. Let's not take recovery as a game, or take recovery as a game and think it will never happen to you yet. Y-E-T. And that's the big word. And Y-E-T stands for you entitled to. And I know it's maybe sound weird that I'm saying you entitled to, because we're entitled to make the decisions. We're entitled to make those decisions. And the day we buried my nephew in Uitenhage, one of the most saddest things when he asked in his death letter that I've got, because some people think it's a joke, can you please bury my dog with me? And my sister had him cremated, and on the side of the tombstone is the dog's name and the ashes with him, because the dog was there when he died. And he said in his letter, It was the dog that always stayed loyal to him. It was that dog. That dog understood David Dolman. We need to remove the stigma. And how many other families are burying their children and you never hear about it because the stigma is too great. We're losing our nation. We're losing our kids to evil. We're losing our kids to drugs. We're losing our kids to pornography. We're losing our kids to prostitutes. We're losing our kids to sleeping with men. I'm talking about men sleeping with men for drugs. Evil has taken over. And that's why people ask me, Anthony, what do you need? Pray. And that's why we've got two wonderful pastors here, Katrina van Blerk and Murder and Robbery, and Pastor Curdy, actually three. Wonderful people. They don't stay on the premises. And we've got our own doctor. But most of all, I believe, and I will never stop believing, that we've got the hand of God over us who want to change. I believe every one of us have been pulled from the pit of hell, Highlander, and today we are free. And it's up to us to work hard that we can stay free. Otherwise we go back to the pit of hell. I pray that none of your children, for the people around the world who are online here, I can see that none of your children and the people in South Africa, besides the parents that are online of the men sitting in front of me, never have to go through the pain of burying a child. It broke my family. It broke it apart. May you have a beautiful week. And keep us in your prayers, please, as we fight the biggest evil to hit our country that takes so many of our beautiful young men and women. God bless you and keep you until we meet again. Thank you.